Hello guys, good day. Welcome back sa ating channel at welcome back para sa panibago na namang lecture dito sa ating Division Criminal Jurisprudence, no? So we are uploading daily, no? For the purpose of helping those who intend to take their board examination, no, for criminology's this coming licensure examination, June 2022, no? So we are still here in the Division Criminal Jurisprudence, no? And today we're going to be talking about the three types of evidence admissible in court, no? So without further ado, I will jump right into our discussion. So we're going to read first the question, then we're going to discuss the choices, as well as we're going to discuss the distinction between the different matters that we will be talking today, specifically the three types of evidence, no, under our criminal procedure, specifically on evidence. Okay, so allow me to read the question, guys, no? Ramon narrated how Pedro killed Juan. Based on his personal knowledge, the information given by Ramon can be classified as what type of evidence? So we have there four choices. First, we have object evidence. Second, we have documentary evidence. Third, we have testimonial evidence, and none of the above. Don't matter the none of the above there. Okay? So before that, let us talk about first, before we could answer, we could provide you an answer whether what type of evidence is a narration of facts is, based on our rules of courts. Let us talk first about the three types of evidence and what's the significance of this, why you need to know about why there is a need for you, as a criminology student, to know about these different types of evidences. Of course, it's very important because this is what yung tinatawag nating admissible evidence. These are the form of evidence that are admissible, meaning it is being accepted by the court, so other form of evidences that doesn't fall onto these three categories, object, testimonial, and documentary evidence, might be something like mahirap siyang kumbaga i-defend, in the sense that it is new and it does not fall onto the following category. And as well as, if you know the different category of evidences, then you know what type of evidences specifically would you want to gather. And upon discussing or upon knowing, informing yourself with regards to these categories of evidences, you would come to know also the limitations between them. Like for example, what's the limitation of object evidences? What can be presented and what can be not. That's the same thing also with documentary and testimonial evidence. Like for example, you might have a documentary evidence, but are you really allowed to present it, or would that be considered as an admissible form of documentary evidence? So ito yung mga importanteng malaman natin, although I'm not going in depth to those topics, but at least we can have an overview with regards to the rules in terms of presentation of evidences. Okay? So before that, let us talk about what is evidence. So when we talk about evidence refers to an object, an object or a narration that we use in order to support our allegations. Let's say for example, you allege Mr. Pedro of committing homicide. Ngayon, that is your allegation. How are you going to prove that? How are you going to convince the court that indeed your allegation is true? So you are going, or you need to present some evidences, either in the form of object evidence, in the form of documentary evidence, or in the form of testimonial evidence. So lahat ng gagamitin mong object, or narration are all forms of evidences. Ito yung mga evidences na gagamitin mo to support your allegation or to support your claim. Okay? So that's the nature of the so-called evidence. Now, with that, we made mention that there are only three categories of evidences accepted or admissible into court presentation. First, we have the object evidence, or ito yung tinatawag nating real evidence, under Section 1, Rule 130. Object evidence pertains to any object that is, object as evidence are those addressed to the senses of the court. No? So we are talking about things that can be seen, that can be touched, no? Like that. Like for example, we have firearm, no, or any weapon used in committing crime, like firearm in the case of homicide or robbery or murder, no? Picklocks in the case of robbery, and many other things. As long as you can see and touch that object, yan yung considered natin as an object evidence or a real evidence. And as I have stated, now when you are gathering evidences of this form, make sure that it is relevant to the crime being alleged or being investigated. So let's say for example, no, it's a crime of homicide. So what is relevant to, what objects are relevant to the crime of homicide? Of course, we have there the murder weapon, no, kung ano man yung ginamit na murder weapon. Other than that, no, if it's no longer relevant, no, you are not allowed to present it, no. So the court will make sure that only those relevant objects must be presented as evidence in the court proceedings. No, that's the limitation. Plus, meron pa yung tinatawag nating an object evidence cannot be presented if it is repulsive, no, and somewhat like controversial, no. Like for example, we're talking about murder, no? How are you going to prove that? Of course, first you need to establish that someone died, no? Someone died. So are you going to present the body of the victim into the court, no, as an object evidence? Of course, that would not be allowed by the court, no? However, there are ways in order for you to establish the death of one person through other form of evidences without presenting the real body of the victim. Parang ganun. So that's the limitation with regards to this. No? Not all object evidence can be presented. No? Only those, number one, it does not create commotion to the court, like being a repulsive evidence, and irrelevant, kumbaga doon sa matter in dispute. So that's object evidence or real evidence in other terms. No? Lahat ng nakikita, nahahawakan mo, that is an object evidence. No? Next form of evidence, we have documentary evidence. No? So when we talk about documentary evidence, these are documents that are being presented as evidence that is, no, the matter in dispute, or the value of that evidence has something to do with its writing, no? Letters, words, numbers, figures, symbols that can be found onto that specific document. No? Like for example, a death certificate can be considered as documentary evidence. It is being used to prove or to establish that somebody had died, or probably the person, no, that you are claiming to have died as a result of a crime committed by the one you are alleging, no, had, committed actually, had been committed actually. So, ito yung mga forms ng documentary evidence, no? Lahat ng mga dokumentong pinapresenta in order to prove something, no, in order to prove some claims or allegations in the court will be considered as documentary evidence, no? However, no, there's a little bit distinction with regards to documentary and object evidence, kasi sometimes, no, a writing, for example, a birth certificate, no, if you're going to present that, you could either classify that as an object evidence kasi you can see and touch it, di ba? Pwede mong hawakan, pwede mong nakikita mo, no? A paper, no? A document, you can see and touch it. How can we distinguish whether that will be classified as documentary or an object evidence? First is that we ask the question, what is this document being presented to, no, or for, no? Is it for its is it for its documentary value, meaning the content of the document? Yun ba yung dahilan kung bakit nyo pinapresenta? Like for example, a birth certificate, is it the fact that what is written there is that this person was born at this specific day, specific month and year? Yun ba yung purpose kung bakit nyo pinapresent yung birth certificate na yan? So if that is, no, that's the purpose, then definitely that can be classified as documentary evidence. But if, let's say for example, you are presenting a birth certificate because a fingerprint of the criminal, of the accused, can be found onto the birth certificate, which is, that's what is in issue, that is what is in question. Kumbaga is parang uh, this this document is a piece of evidence found on the crime scene, contains a fingerprint of this person, which proves that he had been into the crime scene when the crime was committed, something like that. So you are presenting that the birth certificate not for its not for the content of the document, but rather for its physical value. No? So if it is being presented for its physical value, then definitely that would be classified as an object evidence or real evidence, despite it being a document. No? So that's how we distinguish it. Of course, there are rules with regards to documentary evidence, no? But we're not going to be in depth onto that. Basta, tignan lang natin is that it must be authenticated, it must be the genuine copy, no? And we have the so-called best evidence rule, we have the secondary evidence rule, no? And many more with regards to documentary evidence. Not all documents you can present that to the court. Now, only those who qualifies onto the so-called admissibility of documentary evidence, no, with regards to the different rules that we have. So when you are, for example, presenting a document, no, it must be the authenticated one, it must be the genuine document that will be presented. No? However, there will be exemption to that, but probably we can talk about those things on the other videos that we will be uploading relative to this matter. No? Basta ang tandaan lang natin, not all documents can be presented as an evidence. No? It must still follow the rule with regards to the presentation of documentary evidence. No? And lastly, we have the so-called testimonial evidence. No? So testimonial evidence are testimonies, narrations of one person based on his personal knowledge about a certain issues being discussed in the crime file. No? Let's say, for example, di ba, yung question natin, Mr. Ramon, no, is narrating how the alleged person, the accused killed the victim. No? So he is narrating, no, kinikwento niya kung paano, ano yung nakita niya, paano pinatay ni Mr. Pedro yung kanyang biktima. Now, no, that's your narration cannot be considered as a real evidence because it does not quite hindi siya pasok doon sa pinag-uusapan natin, like it can be seen and touched. No? That is not also considered as a documentary evidence because it's narration, unless we are talking about the affidavit made by that person, but that's a separate evidence. No? Ngayon, yung mere narration, like for example, Mr. Ramon was called onto the witness stand to narrate, no, what he witnessed, no, then definitely we can consider that as a testimonial evidence. No? Testimonial evidence po yan. Okay? Of course, no, if we're going to rank the significance, or if we are going to rank the probative value of this thing, no, syempre, object or real evidence has the highest probative value. No? Then secondary to that, we have the documentary evidence, and last, pinaka-least na ang tinatawag nating testimonial evidence. So if there's conflict between, like for example, ako yung akusado, yung biktima naman, no, yung naunang nag-present, ang present niya is somewhat like testimonial evidence, things like that, no, but it's not supported by documentary and object evidence, and me as the accused presented object evidence to prove like for example that I was not there, di ba? Halimbawa, inakusahan ako that I killed somebody, no? I killed somebody, and their evidences are most likely puro testimonial that someone saw me into that, nakita ako doon sa crime scene, nakita akong lumabas ng bahay, nakita akong pumasok sa loob ng bahay. Mga ganun, testimonial evidence. Then me, I presented an object evidence, no? Something like my passport that I went to other country at that specific day and did not return later on that date, no? And I presented some I presented some documents that I was in other countries, that I was indeed check in into some hotel, something like that, no? So I could present this documentary evidence, and plus, no, if it can be supported by object evidences, that definitely my case would win and the victim would lose. Kasi nga, when it comes to probative value, mas mataas ang probative value ng tinatawag nating object evidence and documentary evidence above testimonial evidence. So, what's the point, no? They should collaborate with each other to make your case strong. Like, for example, you're alleging somebody of a crime, no? You should not rely only on testimonial evidence, because among the other categories of evidence, yun yung pinakamababa ang probative value. Then, no, we must remember also that there are rules with regards to testimonial evidence. Who can testify? Who is allowed to testify in court? Something like that. Ano? So marami yan. No? Dapat ninyong malaman or dapat ninyong aralin with regards to testimonial evidence. Okay? So going back to the question, I hope it's clear already that we are talking about narration. So definitely, we can classify that not as an object evidence, not as a documentary evidence, but rather it is considered as testimonial evidence. Okay? Okay, so yun guys, no, ang ating discussion for today. I hope I was able to impart some knowledge with regards to the topic that we discussed. If you found this lecture interesting and helpful, I invite you to like the video, share if you may, bilang pagsuporta sa ating channel, at you may also subscribe para nang sa ganun ay updated kayo sa mga iba pang videos na ilalabas natin. So, yun muna sa ngayon guys. No? Thank you for listening. See you on the next lecture. Bye-bye!